So we're coming up to the end of For All Mankind Season 4, but I've still got one episode to cover before we get to the finale, which at this point hasn't been on television anyway, so I've managed to catch up in like 4 or 5 episodes in a couple of days. So leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done it already. And I forgot to do the intro now, so I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review, so let's get to For All Mankind Season 4, Episode 9. So this episode sort of picks up mid-heist. It's been a few weeks since the last one, and Sam is on board the Ranger spacecraft in order to hijack the signal so they can send their own coordinates to it and divert the asteroid to Mars, not Earth. And everything relies on this working, so it all needs to fall into place. This is their last chance, essentially, before Golidlocks is out of range and on its way to Earth, so it's all or nothing pretty much for everyone involved. And the crew on board the Ranger itself are all prepping for the asteroid mission, so they don't know to look for anything like this happening or anything going wrong. And the last 2 or 3 episodes has all been leading up to this for Ed, Dev, and basically everyone else that they recruit for this mission. Sam manages to sabotage the part of the ship that they need to replace, allowing her to swap the drives to send the fake data that's going to let them divert the Golidlocks asteroid. Meanwhile, back on Mars, Kelly started her work looking below the surface, and she's briefing Dev, who's obviously distracted, but he does perk up when her early work might indicate microscopic life forms somewhere on the surface of Mars. But Kelly can tell that he's a little off kilter, and she's suspicious when he basically isn't really paying attention to the briefing, and he walks out about halfway through and tells her he's going to meet Ed, and she notices, or she has noticed I should say, that something is definitely going on between them, because these guys aren't exactly best buddies. Now, while the plan to replace the drive on the ship is in full swing, they need to sort of keep tabs on what everyone else is up to. So Miles needs the help of the Koreans to monitor them, so they can basically stay one step ahead of everyone else. Because it turns out the Koreans in their little compound or bunker, or whatever you want to call it, on Happy Valley have planted surveillance equipment throughout the base and have been monitoring people for seemingly years. So all seems to be going well, it's just a matter of waiting, but the Korean commander realises the Americans now have access to their surveillance, forcing them to play kind of dumb, sort of, and I'll talk about that in a second. They take the device hooked up to their surveillance equipment to Danielle to confront her, and also expose the fact that they've been spying on everyone else for years, which kinda seems sort of stupid because why would you help them continue doing that? And she tells them that she'll investigate by tracking the serial number on the part that was connected to the surveillance system, and realises someone has tampered with equipment and stole it in Happy Valley Base. She does realise that it's more than a sort of common theft, but she hasn't put the pieces together yet. She sends a message back to Earth and NASA and Eli, so he's now on the case along with the CIA, the KGB and the Russians. They manage to work out that the communications equipment stolen can be used to communicate with the Ranger spacecraft and risk the mission as a whole, and they think it might be linked to the recent work issues on Mars, but either way the hunt is on a few fronts. The Russians decide to activate the KGB agent that they have on Mars, which forces the Americans to do the same with their CIA counterpart. And I didn't actually expect this, but the agents openly reveal themselves to Danielle and the fact that they've been working together, and they're going to keep continuing to do that in order to stop whatever this might be. She points them in the direction of Miles as, according to the Koreans, he's the only American that's been in their bunker for the last few years, so it's a pretty obvious breadcrumb trail when you think about it. And both the CIA and the KGB agents start to interrogate Miles, and it does get out of hand very quickly, with him basically strapped to a chair taking the beating of his life. He doesn't give up any information in this episode, but I can see how that might change, especially if they use his family on Earth against them, which I think is probably going to happen in the last episode, because it's the one thing that would break Miles. I mean, I don't think he would really care about giving up the black market with the money that he's earned in order to save his life, but if you put a gun to his wife or his kid's head, that's going to change everything, because he's on another planet. There's literally nothing he can do to save them other than cooperate. Koreans are also doing their own investigation, keeping an eye on Miles, going back over old CCTV footage, and they notice that he does get into a lift/elevator if you're American, because most of my audience are. Like and subscribe, by the way. and he follows his steps and realises that there's a secret compartment in the lift that allows access to the lower basement, which is where Dev and Ed's operation is. So he stumbles across the secret plan to change the asteroid's direction, but obviously doesn't realise it, and there's a huge confrontation between him and everyone else that's in this operation, and it results in Lee himself choking him out. Now, choking out your own commander, not a great idea, especially when you're stranded on another planet, but we don't know if this guy's dead or he is alive, but Lee has certainly had his card marked. Meanwhile, while this is all going on, Kelly confronts Ed about his behaviour, knowing that he's been lying about something, and she sort of forces him to reveal the issues that he's had with his health, telling her about his condition, but she still knows he's been up to something else with Dev, and he doesn't really go into detail too much. Now, this is kind of interesting, but not really when you think about it, because Kelly could be the linchpin. She's got her own mission on Mars, and obviously huge family ties to her father, so if he does tell her the truth, or she does find out from some other way, where is her loyalty going to lie? Because if she shops her dad, that's his career basically over, along with anyone else involved that's exposed. But if she says nothing and they find out that she knew about it, that's her plan to find life on Mars completely scuppered as well. So no doubt her, Dev and Alex and Ed will all end up back on Earth at some point. And speaking of which, back on Earth itself, they're talking about how they're going to mine the asteroid once it manages to get to Earth. And Eli does mention this, and he said it a few times over the show, but the scale and the scope and the size of the manpower and the equipment that they're going to need is huge. Because remember, this is all about profit. So I've got to wonder, if Ed and Dev's plan is successful, how is Eli going to react to that, along with the Russians, NASA, and everyone else? While things might seem normal on the surface on Earth, and I just mean behaviour, I'm not, talking about the surface of Earth that's beneath your feet, Margot and Alida are back working together, and Margot is still passing her notes in order to get to Sergei, so she can help with the mission, trajectories, maths, all the stuff that we just nod and pretend we understand when we don't. But of course, Margot still has the problem of being under constant surveillance by the Russians, and Alida is kind of getting sick of being the in-between with these two, so she decides to say, look, I'm going to stop doing the notes thing, we're just going to have a meet up at our house, we'll have dinner, we'll do some work, that'll be fine and dandy, don't even worry about it. And they do manage to set this up, discussing the mission while they're going to have dinner and working on the problems that they might anticipate. And this is where Sergei makes an absolutely fantastic point, and I'm surprised it's not really been brought up more in the show, that all the minerals on this asteroid, if they did reach Earth, that would mean that Russia and maybe other powers would lose interest on Mars. As I keep saying, it's a new gold rush and it's all about money, so why would you send people and equipment to Mars when all you would have to do is go to orbit on Earth if they manage to get the asteroid there to make all this money, and the betterment of all mankind and all that stuff. It also does suggest to Margot that they'd run away together before she's taken back to Russia, and they obviously don't have a lot of time in order to make this plan work. The plan that he's come up with is for them to go to Brazil to help them with their space program, which is something I said might happen earlier on in the season. Any nation would want Margot's experience and knowledge, and she wants time to think about it, but again, like the rest of the season, she's on a ticking clock. Now, there's a great scene where we see Margot and Sergei in their respective homes, or hotels, as the case might be with Margot, and they're both enjoying a burger. His looks like a Big Mac, but I don't think he's seen any packaging. And hers is like one of those gourmet hotel burgers, which I thought was a great mirror, because Margot is now enjoying this food that she missed while she was in Russia, while Sergei is kind of throwing himself into the American dream by consuming this, because it's not something that he would have had when he worked for Russia himself. But before he can enjoy his delicious Big Mac, or not Big Mac as the case may be, he's shot before he even takes a bite, and it's made to look like he killed himself. So, is Margot next? Because they all thought that they got away with this secret meeting, and we don't know how many other of their meetings have been discovered or monitored so far. Also, Margot's kind of now in a bind about what to do next. Sergei had the Brazil idea, so I don't know how she's going to fulfill that plan unless she goes to another country in the M7 that she might have contact with and offers her knowledge and experience in exchange for amnesty. But With America and Russia being the really big powers sort of next to India in this alliance, you've got to wonder how all that is going to go down. And we're coming up on the last episode, and this show likes to deliver big shock deaths in the season finale. And I've got to be honest, given where the story is in the time frame and Ed and Danielle's age, plus Ed's illness, I thought Ed was going to be a goner a lot sooner in this season. But as he's not in space on the Ranger spacecraft, I do wonder if they are going to kill Ed, how are they going to do it on Mars? Is it going to be some sort of armed violent conflict in which he has to sacrifice himself? I'm not entirely sure. But given the fact that Ed is literally the very first character you ever met in the first scene of the first episode of this show, he's surely going to die during a big sacrifice moment. So if he is going out, that's why I think it's going to be some sort of sacrifice on Mars in order to save Kelly or, make Dev's plan work. Because Ed really does believe, and he's one of the few that's left from the original space program, that he's still got this idea of space exploration and humanity bettering itself, whereas everyone else, like Eli and the Russians, just seem to be about profit at this moment. There's also the possibility that they could kill Danielle as well, as she's an original season 1 character, and I could see her taking a bullet for Ed, maybe, but I don't see both of them dying like a sort of Tracy Gordo thing from the end of season 2. They've sort of set up that Danielle's looking to go home, or I should say looking forward to go home to spend time with her grandson, so the fact that they said that makes me think that, she's not going to make it. It's like, if you watch a World War II movie or a Vietnam movie, the guy that talks about his girlfriend or talks about his pregnant wife back home isn't going to make it to the end of the movie, and I definitely got that sort of sinister vibe from what they were setting up here. But with the time jumps in the ages of Danielle and Ed, I think it's most likely to be one of them or literally both of them, but as always, it could be anyone in this show. So, like the Golidlocks asteroid, we're hurtling towards the end of season 4 of For All Mankind, and it could go anywhere. And I want to know what you guys think. Which character or characters do you think aren't going to make it out of season 4? And do you think Dev and Ed's plan is going to work? Also, if it does work, what are the ramifications of that going to be? Because they've literally fucked over everyone on the planet in order to do what they want. So yeah, I just wonder if For All Mankind is going to get a season 5, what the long-term effects of this plan, if it works, are. And also, if it doesn't work and they get discovered and arrested, how is that going to work going forward? Because surely Mars would become more militarised. But as always, we're going to have to wait and see. And I said it again, as always, I want to know what you guys think, so let me know in the comments below, or you can reach out to me on Twitter at the Geeks Reviews. I'm going to be posting the finale episode tomorrow, so make sure that you don't miss that and you're subscribed to the channel, and leave a like if you've made it this far.